I am going to call the meeting to order for the Planning Commission for the Village of Romeo for February 6th, 2025. We will start off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Don't we have to do the public hearings first? We have two public hearings at 7 o'clock, and then we go to our regular meeting. I know,
He's right.
I think Ray's up first.
I'm getting the nod, so we're going to do the public hearing first.
I'll make a motion to open the public hearing
This is
Thank
on-
you.
Which one, Andrew? The,
for the, well,
There's only one.
there's only
Yeah.
one at the top of my
Short-term
sheet.
rental.
there's two of them, one for the hearing for Ray, and the other one is for,
It's a public hearing for the short-term rentals
Yeah.
in the Village of
We're
Romeo.
into? Okay.
To open the public hearing for the prohibition of short-term rentals in the Village of Romeo.
You have a second?
I'll second.
All right, the floor is now open. If anyone would like to,
All in favor?
Aye.
it's been a while, I'm out of touch with that. All right. Public hearing is now open. Anyone who is interested, please come to identify yourself and tell us what you want to talk about.
All right. All right. So my name is Taylor Briner. I born and raised in Romeo, went to Romeo High School. Currently, I am the president of the Northern Macomb Regional Chamber, also formerly known as the Romeo Washington Chamber of Commerce. Currently own 9 rental properties with a partner in Romeo, Michigan. I also currently run my own financial planning practice in the village, and specifically on the short-term rentals. Currently, we do own a short-term rental in the village, and so far we've operated it for over a year and a half without incident. To my knowledge, there has been no complaints or by neighbors or any police calls to the premises. In 2024, we had over 40 weekends rented to people visiting the Romeo area. Included in that, 2 were local families that were displaced from their home for a fire, and another one for flood damage. So it's not just people visiting for a wedding or anything. They were displaced from their home and needed a short-term place to stay. In 2023 and in 24, we were booked for Christmas. So people were actually able to use our space for Christmas for their family, whether that was because their space didn't fit or they were traveling from out of town. We've also, in my opinion, have created economic value. I think a lot of the people that stay with us, and I have some comments if I'm allowed to or some reviews if I'm allowed to pass out for you guys to read some of the reviews from the people that have stayed. They all talk about the walking distance to downtown to get coffee and be able to go to the shops. So there's a huge economic value versus those people maybe staying elsewhere. They're spending money in downtown Romeo. After doing some research, there's currently 1 active bed and breakfast, I believe, in downtown Romeo. The closest motel is 23 Mile, or I believe it would be Emily City. So from that, there's a need. There's a need for short-term rentals. Otherwise, people are not staying in the village. They're not coming here to spend money. They're gonna seek elsewhere. So One thing also is, this isn't, I know you guys are talking about banning them today or limiting them to 28 days. But for us, this is a business. It's not a hobby. We have rentals booked all the way up through September. And typically, like right now, the next 45 days, we're booked straight. So there's people that are here renting. Currently, the renters are a couple, for the next like 3 weeks, they're working at the Ford engine plant. Okay, there's a couple guys that are there on contract, getting that ready for the next evolution. But going back to the business, we're running a business. We have cleaning contracts with local businesses. We have plowing contracts, and we even have a lawn service contract that's already signed all the way to next fall. Like, we are running a business. We're supporting local businesses in the same time. So, one thing I didn't see in the proposed ordinance is, anything regarding the La Juliet Motel. I don't know if that's something you guys have talked about, but we're here to talk. I would have loved the opportunity beforehand, once I found out of this, to have sat down with each and every one of you and kind of talk through some of these things before it goes to vote, because we do have an active short-term rental. But couple suggestions that we thought about or talked about is, before we did our research in opening up the Airbnb, there was no ordinance. We wanted to make sure that we were following local rules. And, so looking at, hey, is there something about grandfathering in, a current Airbnb that's been well-standing for over a year and a half? Because otherwise, you would be shutting down our business. Create a permit process, just like you would for a bed and breakfast. That would allow potentially for not necessarily limiting how many there are, but deterring maybe someone. Hey, create a permit, create a permit fee, maybe even create some revenue for the business, for the village. I believe most cities and that have hotels, there's a hotel tax. Well, maybe this is something that we propose as a suggestion, as a way for this to work. Annual inspections. One of the businesses, I know when we opened up the restaurant, the fire department had to come in and make sure it was safe, for that restaurant to open up. Make sure that there was, proper ways for people to escape and if there's an issue. Potentially restricting the size of the house, right? To avoid maybe those concerns of large gatherings. Okay, so there's even some smaller houses that you could potentially look at. Limit the distance apart, or like I said, a tax per pay, or even an annual fee that would maybe deter just the occasional renter or someone that just wants to, hey, let's throw an Airbnb up for this weekend because we're gone. I think there's different ways, there's different options to look at instead of just saying all or none. I know there might be some concerns of, hey, limiting the number would potentially create biases. Well, I think we could even get past that by creating maybe barriers to entry or continual fees along the way that make sure that this is a business, this is run correctly, and done right. Finally, this is still a supply and demand. I don't think we're going to be worried about in Romeo, Michigan. This is not a vacation destination, but it is a destination. And if we want Romeo to become a destination and continue to be a destination, again, I'm part of the Chamber of Commerce. If we want to bring commerce to downtown Romeo, we have to be open to people wanting to stay here. Because as I mentioned in our research, there's nowhere to stay here. Okay, the only option is to be at 23 Mile or Emily City. I'll leave it at this. At some point, I'm sure your family has used, maybe it's not yourself, but kids, grandkids, or whatever it might be, has used an Airbnb or VRBO at some point for a vacation or a getaway. And if you have, or if you've heard from those family members and they've enjoyed it, I don't think it's necessarily right that we take that away from other families that are trying to do the same thing. Even though this is your hometown, so it's not maybe a destination for you, it could be a destination for someone else. I don't think we should limit that. So, thank you.
Couple questions before you go.
Yeah.
How many locations do you have in the village, did you say?
We just have the one.
One in the village,
Yes.
okay. And you are booked through,
We have either bookings or inquiries until September. And sometimes when I mean by inquiries, the workers at the Ford plant, for instance, they say, hey, whenever you have an opening for a week, 2 week, we'll take it, right? So there's a lot of times that these people that are either contract workers, or a lot of our weekends are full of families visiting families for funerals, weddings, or special occasions. But a lot of during the week, we'll find that that worker that wants to stay close to family or is here for a job, that they stay during the week. So we're pretty much booked. Our busy time is still the summer. This is kind of our slow time that we usually find more contract workers than we do people staying. But summer picks up. We're Peach Fest. Usually we have people fighting over that. But it's all local families. It's usually people that have grown here, were raised, they go away and they want to come back to hang out with mom and dad. Maybe they're bringing their kids. So we usually have a full house on the holidays and the Peach Festival weekend.
Could I ask what zoning district is your place located in?
So we're off of Fairgrove Street.
Okay.
Yep. So it's outside the DDA. But
I was just.
yeah, so that would be what the north.
I've been told that there's another one on South Main Street.
We just looked it up last night, we couldn't find it, so they must have took it down. But we knew at one point there maybe was another one on South Main Street, but
Okay, no, just,
yeah.
that's what I was told, that
Yep.
there was one on South Main.
Yep. So I don't know if you guys want, we do have some reviews. If you guys wanted to pass these and just look at them. But again, most of the reviews are just, there's one each there, but, are just talking about, hey, it's close to downtown, we loved it, we would love the opportunity to walk to downtown. I do understand that you guys are kind of being proactive here tonight and looking out for the village. But I'd love for an opportunity to make it a win-win for both, the long-term residents as well as the people that want to visit, so. Thank you.
thank you.
I want to pass this, sorry, I didn't make more copies, I just got the one, if you could pass that around. My name is Sharon Smith, I'm a resident of the village at 377 North Main. One of the things that I wanted to bring to your attention is regards to short-term rentals is kind of an ugly underbelly of short-term rentals, and that's human trafficking that happens. And Romeo is on that map. I attended a seminar at the Methodist Church in the summer. It was given by Hope Against Trafficking. And imagine my surprise to see that Romeo has had incidents of human trafficking or sex trafficking. Unbeknownst to people who may have short-term rentals, they could very well be renting out to someone who plans to use it for a nice quick 5 days in, prostitute away, and then they're down the road in Warren or Sterling Heights or wherever it might be. It happens. And I was made very aware of that. And all of the women at the Methodist Church who attended that seminar were made very aware of that as well. I don't know if it's something that you've considered or you've thought about. It's something that's not talked about. But you know what? Romeo is a perfect little small town, unassuming, where people like this could gravitate to because they don't think anything like this is going to happen in small little Romeo. Before anyone knows what's happening, these people are up and gone. You might expect in a short-term rental, people are going to be coming and going because they're visiting and they're doing this and that, so maybe neighbors don't notice things, a lot of extra activity or traffic coming in and out, no pun intended, the trafficking, but it's just an ugly thing that needs to be brought to light and needs to be considered. And I really do hope that you consider that. In all due respect, I understand that you've got some short terms that apparently are being done illegally right now or against, so it's nice that you brought that up, against current ordinances. And you know, even if there was permitting that's done, that's additional work that has to go on to our clerk who's sitting here. So anyway, I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of this ugly side of things.
I did talk to Cindy yesterday and asked her about if there'd ever been any complaints, and she said she had talked to the chief, and there has never been a single complaint about the Airbnbs in town, period. I just offer that as an aside.
That may be arrests that were made by the Michigan State Police or the county, I don't know. But
Okay.
you can look that up, and Hope Against Trafficking is the website.
I can only tell you what Cindy told me, that she's heard from the chief.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Incidentally, the gentleman did not say he was operating illegally, it's just that there were no regulations.
Okay. My name is Susan Parker, and I've been a resident of the village since 1977. At one time, I was a business owner, I had a school. Anyway, when I came to Romeo, in the downtown area, there were lots of shops, a few restaurants, but you know, you could go to the hardware store, you could order wallpaper, you could buy paint. There was a shoe store, so there were some really vital businesses there. But that's changed. Things change, okay? And once the mall started coming in, some of the shopkeepers had problems and they moved out, okay? So they allowed, some of these spaces were taken up by offices, okay? Well, then it was decided that it was only going to be retail only. And we had a period where it was only retail. And it might have brought a few businesses in, but it totally changed everything. And then once the internet became popular with COVID, you know what happened with that. People are not shopping in the retail. Now we have all of these wonderful restaurants, 11 of them, 11 restaurants in our town, and we can be a destination. So what does this have to do with Airbnbs? I personally have stayed in them, and I was researching, and I was surprised actually to find out, my husband and I have been in our house almost 10 years, that our house was still on Airbnb as a rental. So the woman that we bought it from obviously had used it as that, okay. We've used them. They have guidelines for the hosts, they have guidelines for the owners, and I think the type of people that are brought into our community would be people that would enjoy, you know, our community and go downtown and have coffee or maybe have Indian food or, so I think it's important for us to support our restaurants and the businesses that we have downtown. I looked, and there's Airbnbs in Armada, Richmond, Shelby Township, Rochester's, all around this area. And how many times have you heard where there's been a problem? I'm sorry to hear about the trafficking. That's certainly a concern and a concern of mine. But is that what we're really doing, is renting to people that are trafficking? A lot. So we used to have it bed and breakfast. When our daughter got married, there was a wonderful bed and breakfast. Well, we don't have bread and breakfasts anymore, okay? And we have a party coming up to celebrate our 40th wedding anniversary. It certainly would be nice if I could have some of my family stay in the community. That's what I feel. I feel it's important. Certainly, some of the concern are some of the things that the other man brought up. I don't remember his name, but I think he had a lot of good points, and I'm also glad that he brought the reviews and things like that. So I would really like you to consider not banning them. Right now, people have to go to 23 Mile if they want to find a place to stay, or go out to Rochester. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else? Did you have something you wanted to bring up?
I'll speak in public forum.
Oh, okay. The next public forum. All right.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second?
Who's second?
Yeah.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Apparently, we have one more.
Am I in error on that? You are in error.
Yeah, there's
There's
not a second
There's
one.
no other.
Yeah, I did not see a second one, and I thought,
I apologize, Bill. First time. It was.
thank you, Bill. All right, then we will close the public hearing for this evening. We will now start our regular meeting. We will do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Could we have a roll call?
Fowler? Grandstaff?
Here.
Hale?
Here.
Hall? I'm here. Minton?
Here.
Bill Parker?
Yes.
Justin Parker is excused. Mr. Webb?
Here.
You have a quorum.
Okay. Approval of the agenda.
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
May I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approval of the minutes of the meeting from January 2nd, 2025. You have a motion to approve.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second?
Second, Mr. Webb?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries.
The village,
He's not here.
Not present.
is not here tonight. So we will move to new business.
No, in public forum.
Public forum.
Oh, I'm sorry. Just in a big hurry, I guess. We do have public forum. Does anyone have anything they would like to bring to the council?
I'd like to go last, if that's okay, just so, because I do have two things to bring up with you guys. So if anybody else, by all means, please.
Anyone else? You're up.
That was quick. Good evening, everyone. I am the clerk here in the village, and both the president and I just wanted to address something that had been an issue at least since the last meeting. So I will first read the president's statement. She couldn't be here tonight, and then I'll read my own. On January 21st, I had a letter dispersed to the Planning Commission regarding the improper procedure that took place at the Planning Commission's January 2nd meeting, where the premature and inappropriate election of an officer took place. I understand that there are Planning Commission members that disagree with the village's stance, and that is okay. It does not, however, change the village's stance that the Planning Commission did not follow its own rules of procedure. And I ask that you, as a commission, discuss and take action tonight of how you would like to proceed or move forward. I wanted to attend the meeting tonight, but have considered my attendance there to potentially hinder your discussion. I respect the duty and the intention of the Planning Commission to operate separate of the Village Council. Therefore, in order not to sway the discussion or action of the commission, I have decided not to attend and ask that you consider the action taken on January 2nd and weigh it against your bylaws. I encourage the board to follow the bylaws that you have put into place. It is the village's stance that the most recently updated bylaws of May 2022 are the commission's bylaws. It is understood, though, that a mistake was made in April of 2024 when the Planning Commission was reviewing its bylaws and reviewed the 2019 bylaws. This commission must decide whether it is acknowledging its 2019 or 2022 bylaws as the current official bylaws of reference and take action as it deems appropriate. 2019 bylaws, Section 5, absences, removals, resignations, and vacancies. A member may resign from the Planning Commission by sending a letter of resignation to the village clerk or Planning Commission chair. It does not address, the 2019 does not address a succession plan should a chair not fulfill their one-year commission appointment. The 2022 bylaws state that commission members Stegner, Grandstaff, Hall, and Webb approved this update. Section 6, absences, removals, resignations, and vacancies, under subsection C. A member may resign from the Planning Commission upon notification in writing to the village president or Planning Commission chairperson. Mr. Stegner's email on December 4th reads, "Hello, Megan. I hope things are going smoothly for you. I'm writing to request that if you are considering reappointing me to the commission, please do not. It has been a good long run for me, but after 23 years, it's time for others to pick up the torch. However, I am willing to serve until you find a replacement should that be necessary. The current composition of the commission is one of the better ones I've witnessed, if not the best, so kudos to that. I'm confident it will operate with efficiency and the best interests of the village in mind without me. Good luck moving forward." Mr. Stegner's email on January 29th. Hello, Megan. Judging from phone calls, texts, and emails, I'm getting it has not been clear that I resigned from the Romeo Planning Commission. To be clear, I am resigning and have publicly resigned position as member and chairperson. I made my intentions known in my email to you as of 2024, as well as my public announcement at the 12/5/24 commission meeting. Sorry for any confusion. At the time of my resignation, the Planning Commission included vice chairperson, secretary, and a sufficient number of members for a quorum, which is everything required by the state. Good luck moving forward. Section 3 of the 2022 bylaws states, the vice chairperson shall act in the capacity of chairperson in his or her absence. In the event the office of the chairperson becomes vacant, the vice chairperson shall succeed to this office for the unexpired term, and the Planning Commission shall select a vice chairperson for the unexpired term. So those are the facts as they've been presented. So I'll now read my statement. As some of you know me, some of you might not know me. I am the village clerk. The reason for me being here is, as the clerk, building, planning, and zoning fall under my purview. And as such, I am here to discuss a few things. That is also in both bylaws as well, that planning, zoning, and building fall under me. As those who know me know, I am a procedural person. Laws and procedures exist for a reason. When you do not open yourself up to learning governing laws or procedures, but instead operate off the cuff, it almost always ends badly. This has happened on this board. There has been unnecessary turmoil within this board for the last month over an action that procedurally should have never happened. Chair Stegner emailed the president in December, as I just read, stating that they would not seek reappointment. In this email, he stated that he would stay on until a replacement for his seat was found. At the December meeting of this body, Trustee Parker, as ex-officio, asked the chair if he was, quote, done. It was by no means as exhaustive a line of questioning as the trustee stated it was at the council meeting on January 27th. It was simply, are you done? Nevertheless, Mr. Stegner stated that after 23 years it was time to move on. He then stated that he would stay on until his seat was filled, echoing his email to the president. With all this in mind, quite frankly, the motion to appoint a new chair never should have happened, as a chair was still in place at that time. There are trustees who claim citing Mr. Stegner's own words as cherry picking. It is not. Not only is it a misuse of the word, but fails to acknowledge the entirety of what was communicated. What is cherry picking is focusing on a small part of a much larger sentiment and trying to shoehorn it into your own narrative. The words "I'm done" are just as important as the words that followed. This body's own rules of procedure states what is to happen when a chair steps down midterm. Procedurally, as we just noted, the vice chair assumes the role of chair for the remainder of that term. That alone invalidates the vote for a new chair. Whether Mr. Stegner stayed on or not, this body had no right to elect a new chair at that time. Depending on which rules of procedure you ultimately decide to adhere to, whether it be the 2019 or the 2022 rules, they state that any resignation from this body is to be sent to the president or the clerk. Prior to the January 4th meeting, neither I nor the president had received any such resignation. The biggest disappointment in all of this is that once the action was stopped by the president, an action that was cleared by legal counsel as being just and completely valid inside the law, village council members harassed Chair Stegner in an effort to ensure that he step aside. Their actions, which included calling the president crazy lady, are disgraceful and, quite frankly, unbecoming of the position of village trustee. Furthermore, members of this board contacted village staff, disrupting their entire day because they did not like the answer they were given, and that is not okay. It is not Ms. Wilson's job to be the agent of record for this body. Per your own rules of procedure, that is the secretary's job. Ms. Wilson takes the minutes of the Planning Commission, nothing more. She is the recording secretary, not the secretary. All that said, I ask that this body operate with a level of decorum that has not been displayed for quite some time. The needless legal issues that have come out of this commission's rulings were not only avoidable, but maddening because they were avoidable. Your job as commissioner is simple. You are to view every issue before you through the narrow lens of, does village ordinance or the law allow for it? If the answer is yes, then it must exist. If the answer is no, then it cannot. Personal opinion, and I cannot state this enough, does not matter. Personal opinion is what gets the village into legal trouble. The job of a commissioner is to apply the law. The law is fact. Everybody is entitled to their own opinion, but not their own facts. Case in point, denying an entity the right to operate within the village because you don't like its proximity to another business is not your right. Either equally allow all or deny all. Because this board used personal biases and literally cherry-picked why a business could not exist in an area designated for that industry, you have inadvertently drove us towards another legal issue. Lastly, I ask that you take my words to heart. If you paid attention to the board meeting on January 30th, then you would know that we are in a delicate moment here in the village, one that requires everyone to look out for her. You have been tapped to serve this village. It is an honor not afforded to everyone, and I thank you all for your service. Not everybody steps up, even when asked, so thank you for being here, for taking the time. You are stewards of this great village. I ask that you keep that in mind every time you enter this room and sit in those chairs. Thank you.
Can I ask him a question?
Yes,
You
sir.
said legal issues. I assume we are all well aware there's one suit regarding a decision we made on the house on Chandler. There's more than one?
There is one on the horizon, and that's all I can say,
So
sir.
there's only one that's been filed.
Filed, yes, on the horizon, likely to come through.
I don't think
So-
anybody in this room is surprised about that.
Yeah.
It was gonna go to court no matter what we did.
I don't think so. If you have your metrics by which you judge, right, if it's allowed and everybody else in that industry has passed those metrics, and then this one instance, this one entity does not pass those metrics, it does become a little bit of a either all are allowed or none of them are allowed. Some of the issues with those metrics, you know, you have a similar, I know there was questions on this board, and I had sent an email out to all of you.
I did not receive it.
Oh, okay. There were questions as to the proximity to what could be considered a school. And I put out a 4-page memo to this board citing,
We are aware the village attorney said that the building you're talking about, or the business we're talking about, was not a school.
Correct.
We received that, and it was appropriately not regarded in any shape, manner, or form in our deliberations. At least it wasn't in mine.
correct. And please, I'm broad brushing in my statement. By and large, I believe this board and the members on it to care deeply for this village. But I also believe at times there can be a misguided belief in reach. And it's incumbent upon me in the role as clerk to address it even if it's a one-off instance, to make sure that it doesn't grow, right? Because ultimately, at the end, even in your own bylaws, administratively, I deal with all of the repercussions that come down from this board.
Do you think it's
So-
unusual that planning commission and/or trustee decisions on zoning matters or approval of projects end up in court?
It depends.
I mean,
And I'll say it
would-
depends because it depends on how it got there. If it's being viewed outside the lens, like I said, does the law allow for it? That's your metric. That's your ultimate water test. Does the law allow for it? And when you start to skew your view on whether or not the law allows for it based on personal opinion, it does not surprise me. But to answer your question, do I find it unusual? The last few years here in the village, with respect to our neighbors, even in Macomb, even further down, if we're talking per capita, yes, we have
I would disagree with you.
we have
on
higher.
that.
I mean,
I don't think that there's a rezoning. It is common in adjoining communities
Mm-hmm.
that rezoning requests end up in court.
right.
And anybody who's familiar with the real estate business, and I've been a real estate broker in the area for
I'm familiar.
over 50 years, is well aware of the fact that there are communities where it's commonly accepted you rezone through court.
Right. There
And
is,
it's
consent
not
judgments are a
unusual
thing
that
for a reason.
unpopular businesses end up in court.
Mm-hmm.
Those are common, very common things.
I understand.
So we've had two decisions that, one's we know has gone to court, the Chandler Street property, they have filed a suit, so that's public knowledge. And I think we all understand what the second one, which you've alluded to, may end up in court. It may end up in court.
Right.
But I don't think our board, and it will be up to a judge to make a decision that we acted improperly. I understand your statements about our personal opinions and and keeping them out of that. I have a deeply personal opinion about a matter coming up tonight, and I will disclose that. The lady who talks back here happens to be my wife. So we've been talking about this since the package arrived.
Right.
But I think you'll find most of us really do try to keep our own personal thoughts out of it and react in an intelligent manner.
And again, I'm not saying that every decision on this board is painted with that brush. I think there are hot topic issues that people can get very emotional on and very opinionated
Well,
on
you get
and
30
allow that.
people here that are badder than a wet hen about something, and no one else is speaking for it. Actually, one person spoke for it, then, yeah, that's a hot button issue. To get anybody out to one of these meetings is rather rare.
Oh, right.
It just doesn't happen. It's just us. Anyhow, we've already run way past it.
Yeah. So I thank you guys for your time. Again, I appreciate your guys' service. And I just ask that you take my words to heart and think about it. And again, we can disagree, but like I said, when you're judging similar industries.
You're not suggesting that our last meeting was improperly held? You are?
No, well, what I'm suggesting is per your rules of procedure,
The woman who sat
procedurally,
here as the chair, by any set of these procedures, would have sat here and held the gavel because the other two people who might have done it were not here. Properly, she acted as chair.
that's not the question. The question was whether or not procedurally there was a right to elect, and per rules of procedure, there wasn't.
The fact that Bill's sitting here, I think, now renders your comments moot. He's here, and I don't think anyone's arguing about that.
Not here, no.
I said the fact he's sitting here, and
No, I'm saying not here, people aren't arguing about it here, but there is still, even till
People
today.
can argue about anything they want to outside of this room.
Correct. But when they're also members of this board, I feel it, again, prudent to address it. Because there is a misunderstanding that needs to be addressed so that it doesn't further exacerbate. And I thank Mr. Grandstaff for stepping up. And no one is saying that you guys can't hold elections. It's just the position that an election was held for procedurally shouldn't have happened. What should have happened was, as we identified, Mr. Grandstaff automatically ascends, so that leaves a vacation for the vice chair to be elected. So that is the biggest issue of all. And then what fell out from all of that, again, the vitriol and the name calling, I just don't think it holds any place here, and it shouldn't. It shouldn't. For a chair position, I just don't think it's that great of consequence to start slandering people behind closed doors, and I do have evidence to my claims, and I'm not just speaking off the cuff. So like I said, I just wanted to address these things. And again, sir, I'm not talking about you. Again, I believe this board to be, by and large, doing the right thing, but like everyone, there are times that you maybe step aside because personal opinion.
Okay.
So, again, thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nobody else?
Okay, oh,
Sorry, just with the lawsuit kind of brought to mind, the bed and breakfast that had come before you, and I believe the village as well on Chandler, what they want to have is a bed and breakfast. If the short-term rental, if you do approve that, does that automatically put them in business? Is a question that I have, and obviously you probably can't answer me. And also, as this gentleman here that has the short-term rentals already says that he's got a business. And having a business in residential changes the entire flavor of all of our neighborhoods. And I thought we aren't supposed to run businesses in residential neighborhoods. So again, to further my request that you please consider not allowing short-term rentals. So thank you. I'll shut up now.
did we get her name?
Sharon Smith.
I didn't hear.
Sharon Smith.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
all right. Okay, anyone else? All right, we will close public forum number 2. We will then move on to new business. We have a site plan review. And Karen seems ready to talk to us about it.
All right, so tonight we actually have a site plan that's being brought for us again. This is for 14940 33 Mile Road. This is at 33 Mile Road near Powell. This is actually a site plan that we reviewed back in 2003. It's for the development of an industrial complex for industrial tenants. Planning Commission approved it. However, a building permit was never pulled because the applicant just didn't do so. After the Planning Commission approves something, the applicant has 12 months to pull their permit. Otherwise, they have to be reviewed again. So the applicant is wishing to move forward with this project now, but because the time has lapsed, the review is being brought back before you again. Nothing on the site plan has changed since our review in 2003. Therefore, I still stand by my recommendation to approve the site plan because it does meet the requirements laid out in the zoning ordinance for the industrial district.
And they were meeting all,
They meet it, yeah. They haven't changed their site plan since then. They didn't modify it in any way. So I am recommending approval of it. Like I said, the only reason why it's coming before us again is because the time had lapsed and they hadn't pulled their building permit yet.
that basically was the only reason then, okay. All right. Item number 2 on new business is,
Don't we have to vote on that, Bill?
what?
Don't we have to vote on that?
Yes, it's the second
On
item.
her
She's-
report?
We've got the site plan before us,
Yes.
and I'd like to make a motion that we reapprove it so that he can go forward and build his factory.
I was getting to that.
Okay, but I thought you were gonna move on to the next property, and that's, go ahead.
You done?
Yeah.
Bill and I have known each other for many years,
Okay,
and I still,
Bill, it's time to move on.
okay, we have before us a site plan review for 33 Mile, property ID 27-01-36-226-018. May I have,
I'll make a motion that we approve it.
Second.
you guys are just trying to get me out the door by 8 o'clock, aren't you?
You need to call, a motion's been made and seconded.
All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Could we have a vote, please?
Mr. Parker?
I'm sorry.
Parker?
Yes. Aye.
Hale?
Aye.
Webb?
Yeah.
Minton?
Yes.
Grandstaff?
Yes?
I'm an aye. Motion carries.
Ray, I won't hold it against you if you want to leave.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Good night, Mr. Schaefer.
Start building.
This time I will.
Okay. Item number 3, prohibition of short-term rental ordinance, the review.
So the planning commission the planning commission was asked to address short-term rentals. The planning commission has been deliberating over this for the last few months. We've been looking at multiple options. The planning commission had finally decided to move forward with the prohibition of short-term rentals. The language would read, short-term rentals are prohibited in all zoning districts. A short-term rental is defined as a dwelling or part or portion thereof that is available to accommodate the lodging of guests paying a fee, charge, or other compensation for a period of 28 or fewer consecutive days and nights at a time. This includes tourist homes, vacation rentals, Airbnbs, VBROs, and the like, while excluding bed and breakfast establishments as regulated in sections 46-153, 46-233, and 46-273. We've had the public hearing, so you've been able to hear public comment and additional issues on this matter. So now it's up to the planning commission to make a deliberation and decide if they want to move forward with the adoption of this ordinance.
Do we have a written copy of that for us
The
to
language?
vote on? Yeah.
Should be in
It's
your
here.
packet. Should be in your packet, Bill.
Karen, Bill, can I ask questions? We have a witness before us, or someone, could I ask her a question?
Yes?
Did you review any adjoining communities' short-term rental ordinances?
I did. I work in a few communities that have allowed short-term rentals.
Can you tell me what those generally are?
Well, they follow, you have to register with the community. If you
Okay.
decide, if the community decides to allow this, you register with the community. You have to have inspections, and that happens on a however many year basis. I think 2 or 3 typically is what most communities offer.
And that's in protecting health, safety, and welfare.
Yep.
So we got smoke alarms and carbon monoxide alarms, and there's no signs of rat infestation or things
Right.
like that. So that's just,
A lot of communities, they are putting a cap on how many they will allow in a community, so it is a bit first come, first serve.
I'm under the impression in looking at and you and I have had this discussion here before, that there's, in the state legislature, there's been a number of bills, I believe, introduced, and nothing's gone anywhere.
Right, there's
there's-
been
there's
bills
actually-
introduced that would just flat out allow it, and that is something that could always, it comes up so frequently, I say I wouldn't be surprised if it comes up again this year, that would basically state that this has to be allowed in residential communities. It has to be a use. That hasn't passed yet, but that is floating
You're right.
around. I believe right now, there is legislation, either it's moving up or it was passed, where Airbnbs are going to be subject to taxes similar to hotels. I don't, that's more on the business side. It doesn't really affect
But
what
we're
a
not talking
community
about
decides to
Airbnbs,
do.
we're talking about short-term rentals.
Well, sure, that would include short-term
Okay,
rentals.
but that would
yeah.
include, okay,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about B&Bs.
Oh, no, Airbnbs.
Okay,
yeah.
Airbnb, that sounds reasonable.
But inspections, there is, a lot of communities are now publishing guidelines of, how to be a good guest in the community, that you have to have posted inside your rental, so that guests are aware of, if there are, noise regulations, whatever, how it's expected to behave if someone does stay at an short-term rental. Some communities pass instances where, if there becomes a record of instances where public safety has to come out to the property due to guests, you might get your registration revoked and you can't operate. There's language like that. But, I'm the planner for Clay Township. They recently passed a short-term rental thing, I think 2 years ago. And so far, I have not heard of problems that they've had. But again, it's a different community, so,
That's really more of a resort community,
yeah.
and it's on the water, and there's a lot of those that are out there.
Right. But in the summer when we were deliberating over how do we want to go about this, and we were looking at examples, I do believe part of the conversation on that was, do we have the staff to oversee and, do all these inspections and keep track of all these things? Because currently Romeo doesn't regulate long-term rentals, like rental properties. There's no inspection.
Having been a landlord for 50 years or so, there actually has been unenforced inspections on the books.
Oh, okay.
I know that for a fact, okay? Nobody's ever enforced it, they're there.
Right. So that was part of the conversation, which, I guess maybe has what led us to where we are today with the current language that we have before us.
My impression, again, looking from what I read in my professional magazines, is that the thrust on, when you start limiting them, it's like saying, my God, we shouldn't have 11 restaurants in downtown Romeo, we should only have 4. It becomes one of beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and too many is in the eye of somebody who doesn't want them. And that appears to be a deeply challengeable constitutional question from what I've read. No one's ever been able to come up with how many seems fair or how many days seem fair. It's all a matter of opinion and really not based on anything that's factual. That's just what I'm reading, and I'm sure you see the same thing on your side in your professional things.
You're done.
Oh, maybe.
We'll see. Thank you. All right. We have a proposed prohibition of short-term rental ordinance, proposed section 46-459. May I have a second?
Well, you're looking for a motion.
Yes.
There's been no motion. You making a motion?
That is the motion.
Can I ask you one question before we go further?
Can we get a second first, and then we can?
Did anybody make a motion? I didn't make a motion.
I
made the motion? Okay.
Nobody seconded it. I have some questions, and Andrew does too.
I do.
Can I get a second?
Second.
We have a second now. Now we can ask questions.
Okay. Me first?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Do we have the staff to register and give fees and do inspections on these? Is that something that can happen, would happen? Because I don't want to go back and forth about doing all of those steps and then it not.
So,
Thing.
short answer, right now, we can make it work, yes. There is, part of the discussion last Thursday was how we move forward in the village. What does that look like, expanding different services? There is a discussion to better serve the building department, bringing on part-timers or even another full-timer. So we could do it right now, yes. If we brought in more help, definitely. And I'm all for revenue generators, and this seems like it could be a revenue generator for the village. Do we know to what extent? No, but then again, no. I
So
mean,
if we can't regulate the snow,
yeah.
we can't regulate the snow out of your own words, but somehow we can regulate short-term rentals.
Well, our building officials, we have enough that can do the permitting side.
I mean, Mike couldn't even get into that house that was having an illegal apartment, right, down by the car wash there.
Lafayette.
Lafayette, right? We couldn't even get that resolved without going to court.
So
Which is
it's,
how we ended up here in the first place.
it's not for a lack of trying, so I guess there's that.
I mean, it's great that, Taylor runs a great business, right? He said it himself. It's a business in the residential zone. So it's a matter of, this is a matter of opinion at this point because this isn't an ordinance. So it'll be the opinion of the board. Taylor does a great job. Maybe the next person doesn't. That's up to this board to decide if we want to give it a chance.
Why can't we meet with Taylor and find out what's acceptable for someone who's in the industry, rather than adopting an atomic bomb and saying no?
Hey, I'm not saying no. I'm saying Taylor does a great job. It's great. I don't want to harm Taylor and what he's got going. At the same time, do we want to open up the village to businesses in the residential zone? It's really just our choice, right?
But this thing says the entire village. It doesn't say the commercial district, it doesn't say the office district, it doesn't say the industrial district.
It's the entire village.
Right.
Right. So I said we're gonna open up the residential zone to businesses.
If I could, gentlemen, the ordinances do not allow for any kind of residential in the industrial zone. And you can have businesses in residential per our ordinances. They just cannot affect the overall traffic in that residential zone. So you could run your home base business out of there. But what you can't do, case in point, we had someone do this around Tilson. They wanted to have a hot dog cart. That would create undue traffic over there, so you can't do that. So in terms of this, I don't know if you could argue that this would create undue traffic. And back to your point, Brian, I think the way it's regulated all depends on the mechanisms you put inside the ordinance, right? So if it is a problem where, say, we run into another instance where Mr. Bomarito cannot gain entry to do any kind of inspection, I would suggest get with Mr. Bomarito to figure out how to craft it and word it as such to where after so many times of failing that, then we can take either legal action or start enforcing fines and fees through the police. That would be probably the best way forward because, again, it's a business. The best way to hurt a business is the pocketbook, and if they're not adhering, you start assessing fines, someone's gonna answer at a certain point. But that's just my 2 cents. So do you guys have any other questions?
I was under the impression that these were beginning to be, like, how this was brought forward with us originally by the building inspector was that we were having problems.
Right.
And now I'm hearing from Ms. Wilson that there's never been a call on any of these, so now I'm confused.
That's what she told me. And since we're on the record, we're on the record.
Right, so we were told.
That's the research I looked at, there's never been a call.
Right.
Police department.
There has never been an issue with short-term rentals. One of the thoughts, and I've literally just been texting with the chief of police, and we don't have any data to this either. So to Ms. Smith's point of those maps, they take the entire area as well. It could be something as simple as saying the trailer park that resides just outside, or
Well, if we don't have
the
data, we don't
motel.
need to speculate, right?
So, I mean, there is, I'm not completely invalidating her point, and I do believe it is an issue, 100%.
So we don't need to
But
record saying.
if you can say, I don't know if you can attribute that to Airbnb, but again, that's my opinion on that. But we have not had any issues. Police have not had any reports from Airbnbs.
I was told that there is a short-term rental on South Main Street, which would be in the office district. And actually, it would be a fine place for one if you stop and think about it. There are 1 or 2 actual residents, many people live in those houses. Justin lives on South Main Street, but much of that rest of that street is either rental already as either long-term, and apparently there's a short-term. I don't know that for a fact. I can only recite what Justin told me. So I have a hard time saying you can't do it in the office or, the last Airbnb that my wife and I, that is my wife back there, stayed in was in a very commercial district with a bar across the street and a little restaurant next door. It was an absolutely fantastic place. So to use the, you can't do it anywhere in the village, just seems absolutely ludicrous. And in making the notes I made before I came up tonight, I was thinking, you know, how big a deal is it to have somebody who's gonna do it legally pay $25 a year to register their place, and perhaps a biannual or triannual inspection for making sure. The only things I guess that we really would concern ourselves about would be that they've got the smoke alarms and the fire alarms, and smoke, fire, and carbon monoxide. Those are what's required, but, you know, many of us live in older homes that don't have those things, period. You know, if they were coming to inspect our residences, they'd say, you guys gotta do something about it, but if they're gonna operate this business and have their license, they're gonna have to bring their place up to code. And I think that's a more sane approach to take than this sledgehammer that we're talking about here.
Mr. Chairman, I do believe there was some complaints against an advertised Airbnb that was on East Lafayette Street. Up at the top floor of the old industrial building. I do believe there were some complaints against that. You know, it's in my eyes, I mean, I've been up there before it was that. That's a hazard waiting to happen.
There's also a question of zoning.
Exactly.
So it's not zoned to have anyone live
Right.
there or habitate there. The zoning, the way our zoning ordinances are, you can have residences in the office district because a lot of times those offices are just houses with an office now, right? But if you guys were to move forward on any kind of prohibition or, like you guys are suggesting, selective prohibition, I would keep it what our current zoning ordinances state is allowable for residential. So that would be your residential, your office district, definitely not your industrial district.
Right.
And stuff like that. Otherwise, you're walking into the realm where you guys are gonna have to, either you guys or it's gonna have to get kicked up to the board. You're gonna have to rewrite your zones.
You've already got apartments in the downtown district.
Correct.
And I've owned several of those buildings. That's whether or not they're long-term or short-term, actually financially, they'd be far more viable as short-term rentals than they would be as long-term rentals.
Right, but that's allowed for in the ordinances?
Well, short-term rentals aren't, long-term rentals are. So this would ban short-term rentals where they're not currently banned, which would be in the downtown district. I have an objection to that because this is nuts. That's literally the kind of place that we stayed in.
Right.
We did one in Indianapolis, the same thing. It was just, wow.
Well, this building that I'm talking about is a non-conforming
That was actually.
in a multifamily district.
It's my great-grandfather's factory. I played in that building until they sold it, okay? That when they condominiumized it, and that property's been condominiumized, it was specific that he could have the one apartment, period. And if you go back and read the rest of it, most of that upstairs cannot be used for anything. I guess a storage, but could not be used as another apartment. If someone is doing it, they're doing it totally illegally against what the village council allowed when they condominiumized it. I believe there are 5 units in that entire property.
I would agree with that.
Okay, that is not an issue for us this evening. We have a motion and a second.
Sounds like you're calling the question.
I'm sorry,
Sounds like you're gonna call the question. You wanna roll?
do you have a question?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay. We're all good? Can I have a roll call, please?
Yes, Mr. Grandstaff,
Yes?
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Parker,
No.
Mr. Minton,
Yes.
Mr. Hale,
No.
Ms. Fowler's not here. I am a yes.
4-2.
Yeah, motion carries.
All right. One of the items in your packet was the year-end review of our work for 2024.
I only have one amendment.
What's that?
I only have one amendment to it.
You want to make an amendment to the?
Yeah, I need a W on the end of my first name, that's it.
I didn't hear.
My name's spelled wrong, that's it. Other than that, that's what we did.
Yeah, mumble. What did you say?
My name's spelled wrong,
Oh,
of all the things.
can we make an adjustment on that?
Yes.
That is more or less an informational item. Last item is the election of a vice chair. Now that we have definitely established that
You're the chair.
I am giving up the vice chair, so, yes, we will need to appoint a vice chair. May I have a nomination?
Janine Fowler.
I didn't.
Janine Fowler.
All right,
I would nominate Janine Fowler.
all right. Second, okay. All those in favor?
You want a roll call?
Yes.
Yes.
Bill, don't you want to ask if there's any more?
What?
Don't you want to ask if there's any more nominations?
Well, Bill, do you want to be nominated?
No.
Good.
But you would normally ask, is there anybody else who wants to be nominated?
I'm sure someone will have spoke up if they wanted. Does anyone else?
No, don't look at me.
Thank you. No.
I mean, it is a hard job, you guys. I did it for a few years. It takes a lot of time. But may we have a roll call vote on our co-chair election,
Vice chair. It's not co-chair.
vice chair, whatever
Vice
you want to
chair.
call it.
Vice chair.
Mr. Parker,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Minton,
Yes.
Mr. Hale,
Yes.
Mr. Grandstaff,
Yes?
I am a yes.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
You didn't let me say we had one last item,
No.
and it was adjournment. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is.